Hey, friends. As a lot of you know, I've been really deep in reading the Epstein files, the emails specifically, and we all know that there is really disturbing stuff in there. But I found stuff about a model, a lady who died under suspicious circumstances after her association with Epstein. And I just wanted to talk about her. I wanted to show y'all what we know and ask questions because her death is very, very suspicious. And it's just a really sad situation. Her name is Ruslana Korshinova. In the modeling world, they called her the Russian Rapunzel because of her beautiful, beautiful hair. And she had that gorgeous, unique look. She was fortunately, in my opinion, a model during the time before everyone started trying to make their face look exactly like Kim Kardashian, in my opinion. And Kim Kardashian, don't get me wrong, y'all, I find her absolutely beautiful, but other people are beautiful too. Like there's not doesn't need to be one uniform face for beauty. But anyway, that's just a little aside there. But yes, Ruslana was very, very beautiful. Life seemed pretty good. If we go to her Wikipedia page to try and find out about her early life and career, I might butcher these names, friends. I apologize if I do, but it says we've learned that she was born in Yulkov, Chukotka, Russia, and later moved to Almaty, Kazakhstan. Her father was a Red Army officer who died when she was 5. And it says, according to her mother, before Korshinova began modeling, she was enrolled in a school for gifted children, getting top marks. I would really be curious to know if there's any way we can find out what was the gifted children's school that she was enrolled in, because we know now that Epstein had deep, deep ties in these gifted programs and in the troubled teen industry. And he would use those not only to locate and recruit, but for punishment whenever they didn't do what he liked, or didn't act the right way, needed to be made a little more submissive or whatever. And what makes me more suspicious on that is it says Korshinova was discovered in 2003 when All Asia printed a story on Almaty's local German language club, which Korshinova was then attending. Her photograph featured in the article caught the attention of Debbie Jones of Model One. Jones tracked her down and signed her up, and she was 15. She was nicknamed the Russian Rapunzel for her knee length chestnut hair in her early work. Now, who is Debbie Jones? Apparently, she was a model scout. I can't find much about Debbie Jones online, but we do know that a lot of model scouts were actually scouting for girls for Jeffrey and Jean Luc Brunel to abuse and loan around for abuse. So, yeah, I'm just really curious who this Debbie Jones is. But it says that she was represented by IMG, Beatrice, Traffic Models, and Maryland Model Agency and iCasting Moscow, which was her mother agency. I think they mean the main one and the others are under that. British Vogue hailed Korshinova as a face to be excited about in 2005. I agree. She was absolutely gorgeous. Now, the Maryland Model Agency, I think, is connected to Jeffrey Epstein. In 2006, Korshinova appeared on the cover of Vogue Italia, Broken Dolls, along with Vlada. I can't pronounce that one. Sorry, friends. Photographed by Patrick de Marchelier. Says it was reported that Korshinova was doing well in the industry, earning $7,000 per shoot. However, towards the end of her career, and this is important to remember, friends, towards the end of her career, Korshinova discovered that several parties, including her agency, her agent, and her ex-boyfriend, Mark Kaminsky, had been stealing money from her. She sued them, demanding $500,000 in compensation. However, her mother claimed that she did not receive any money and that Ruslana's money had been stolen by her agent, her agency, and even her ex-boyfriend. On June 28, 2008, around 2:30 p.m., Korshinova died after falling from a ninth floor balcony of her apartment at 130 Water Street in the financial district of Manhattan. Let's look up that address, friends. Okay, so if you go to Google Maps and input Jeffrey Epstein's address on the Upper East Side up here, his address is 9 East 71st Street. Ruslana's apartment was 7 miles away, looks like about 20 minutes with the tolls. So, not right there, but still very easy access. Not that anyone in the world wasn't easy access to Epstein when he owns a fleet of planes and helicopter. Says U.S. police stated there were no signs of struggle in her apartment and concluded that Korshanova's death was an apparent suicide. One of Korshanova's friends stated she had just returned from a modeling job in Paris, noting that she seemed to be on top of the world, with no apparent reason why she committed suicide. Korshanova planned to celebrate her 21st birthday on Wednesday in Pennsylvania, and her former partner, Artem Horshanok, stated that he dropped Korshanova off at her apartment several hours before her death, and they watched the Patrick Swayze Demi Moore film Ghost together. It says, however, Korshanova appeared brokenhearted and angry in some of her postings on a social networking site. Korshanova's most telling message came in March 2008. I'm so lost, will I ever find myself? Korshanova's mother does not believe in her daughter's suicide. A quote from Valentina says, she told me about her work problems a year ago. She said that she wanted to quit the modeling career. Everything was fine with her recently, though. If she had problems at work, she would have told me. It wasn't until January 2024, during an initial document release about Epstein, where it was revealed that Ruslana visited his island 2 years before she died. Now, another thing that happened before she died that people have wondered about is she attended some sort of conference, camp type thing, convention called Rose of the World. It's a controversial Moscow based organization that describes itself as training for personality development. And apparently, Ruslana spent 3 months there doing training sessions. The training sessions are really odd, friends, and I wonder if Epstein is involved in this thing. Because listen to this. The sessions encourage participants to share their worst experiences and recall repressed memories. And they're modeled after LifeSpring, whose controversial methods were the subject of multiple lawsuits for mental damages in the US during the 80s. Korshanova attended these training sessions with a friend, Ukrainian model Anastasia Drozdova, who also committed suicide under similar circumstances in 2009. Friends of the two women reported changes in behavior after several months after the rose. Korshanova became aggressive, while Drozdova experienced violent mood swings and grew reclusive, and both lost weight. Now, what's really, really interesting to me is their whole method that was just talked about that was modeled after LifeSpring, where they want the participants to tell their worst thing that happened to them in their life. That took me, in my mind, back to Epstein and Bannon. Actually, let me bring this up. Okay, so what's important to me on this and what made me think about this whenever I read the LifeSpring methods that Rose of the World uses and that Ruslana and her friend were subjected to before their deaths, it reminded me of something Jeffrey said in this interview with Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon had asked him a pretty straightforward question. How does a schmuck like you get on the board of Rockefeller and the Trilateral Commission? And instead of just answering that question, Jeffrey starts talking about how people don't understand money and blah, 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 and this and that. And having a calculator back in the day would open doors because you had that Texas Instrument, whatever calculator. It was nonsense, friends. It was absolute nonsense. It was Jeffrey doing his little Wizard of Oz routine, paying attention to that man behind the curtain. What you really want to ask is this. And in the end, he never says how he got on there, ever. But he does reveal a method of his that he thinks it just sounds so smart and nobody's picking up on this. But let's just listen to him real quick, friends. And by the way, where I've got it paused, looks like the damn Joker there. Look at his freaking smirk. I hate this guy.
It's my colleague. And David started to explain to me world politics. So David would say, Jeffrey, money is going to be sort of the most important things. People don't understand money. You seem to have this knack for money.
What a dumb thing to say. Money is going to be one of the most important things, and people don't understand money. Everybody in the damn world will tell you that money is one of the most important things, even if they're not a greedy person, like Epstein. We all know that we have to survive. We need food, we need housing, we need our basics of life. And the only way that we can get those is via currency. The currency that we currently use in our global system is money. Now, Epstein was using currency of humans. Human trafficking is illegal for a reason, even whenever it's not minors. Human trafficking of adults is illegal too, because people like him would turn us all into absolute currency fodder around the world. If human trafficking wasn't illegal, we'd all be getting snatched up and made to do things that we don't want to do. But he's sitting there acting like him and Rothschild understood that money is important in a way that no one else does. I get irritated when these elites say super basic stuff that everyone knows and acts like we're all just too dumb to understand it down here in our little spot. Anyway, this is about Ruslana, not about me going off about how much I hate Jeffrey Epstein.
Money. I said to David, tell me about your life. What was the worst and the best part of your life?
Okay, so to me, I think he just revealed his whole method because he just went on this big deal about how no one understands money. No one understands global currency. It's not like what anyone thinks, blah, blah, blah. Only he has a neck for it. And Rothstein asked him, how do you just seem to have this neck for money? And apparently, according to himself, which isn't reliable, Epstein's response was, tell me, what's the best and worst thing that ever happened in your life? What's the worst? Tell me about it. Because when somebody tells you something that they are still pained about, that still hurts, or maybe that they feel shame about, those kinds of things, once you reveal a secret like that to a person, bare a bit of your heart, you feel closer to them. Epstein intentionally tried to get these people to feel close to him in a way that goes beyond blackmail. Because, what's the how's going to blackmail Rothstein off knowing that it was shameful to him and frustrating that his friends would leave the bill for him and he actually didn't have the money, not in the way that they thought. So that's not compromise, that's nothing that he can be blackmailed about. But Epstein knows now a deeper part of his heart, and he feels closer to Epstein than he would someone that he hadn't shared that with, Anyway, I'm just kind of rambling on about it. But whenever I heard him say that, and I read in the Rose of the World description about the methods that they use with Ruslana and the other model, sounds very much like that. It sounds like Epstein was doing the LifeSpring thing on people in order to manipulate them in a way that they didn't even realize was happening. So it was literally just months after she left the Rose of the World place that she was found dead. And there are serious discrepancies and odd things that just don't make any sense about her death. And we're going to talk about that, friends. So let's switch over to Jmail and let's read what Jeffrey had to say about Ruslana and the situation. It's very revealing. So I've searched for Ruslana and we have 32 hits. And even though there's not a way that I know of to sort them by date order in here, I'm going to try to read them in date order, just find the earliest and go from there. So earliest we have is June 26th, 2006. And we have to remember Ruslana died June 2008. So let's keep that date in mind, friends. This is 2 years before her death. And it was also revealed that 2 years before her death, she spent time on Epstein's island. So right here, this says Kellen S. at Earthlink, which I believe is Sarah Kellen. She says, I still have the white underwear we bought for Ruslana in St. John. Do you want me to give it to her? Epstein's response is 71st Street at 3. Whatever the hell that means. I guess they were going to do a meeting to give it to her. He probably wanted another opportunity. But yeah, so this confirms to us 2 years before her death, they were on the island. They bought underwear for her. So yeah, things were going on. Then our next oldest email after that is October 28th, 2009. He said after her death. And Jeffrey is emailing Ramsey Elcole, whoever that is. And he says, does she want to come to Florida? I call her if due number, please. Whatever the hell he was saying. Jeffrey was the worst with spelling, grammar, all that. Ramsey writes back to him, says, she said she will move in with a friend of hers, so never mind. I meant to write you sooner, but I've been in Luxembourg all day in the U.S. Embassy having some legal docs notarized Ruslana's estate final accounting. I appreciate your offer, and I don't need to tell you that I also value your friendship. The reason I never ask for anything in return for introducing you to models is because I consider it more of a favor, and I know that you are also good for favors, as you have illustrated by letting blank stay with you. You're a solid person, Jeffrey, and that means the world to me. Let me know when you want to seal or any of the other girls, and I'll set it up. So, like some extreme ass kissing there. And then, like, not only ass kissing, but a little weasel reminder that I never ask for anything in return because I consider it a favor. Bleh. Dude's gross. And then Epstein says, if blank is going to come or move in with M, I need to know. Like the way he kept tabs on their movements, what they ate, every little thing is just weird. Okay, so that was October 28th, 2009. We have another October 28th, 2009. And it's the same thing I just read, just with it actually says redacted instead of the blanks that I intuited. It says if redacted is going to come or move in with redacted, I need to know. And it also tells us that Jeffrey and his people were in charge of Ruslana. Like they're doing legal accounting on her estate, not her family. Like it feels like she was owned, basically, friends. Okay, and then we've got October 29th, 2009, and it's the same email thread, but Ramsey says someone, blank, is having some serious problems with Next. They are about ready to drop her. She was supposed to go into the agency today and speak with Joel, but she never went. Can you maybe talk to her? And that is the last we have of that email thread. After that, it goes to 2010. And the next earliest is July 4th. And it's weird, okay? Epstein emails someone and he says, I hope you are having fun. 2 years ago, Ruslana, a Russian model, died, mainly as a result of her boyfriend's belief in alternative medicine versus real medicine. Really? Okay. Sounds like he's trying to say the boyfriend is the one who got her to go to Rose of the World and Rose of the World was the problem. I'm not convinced of that, friends, but yeah. And that's Epstein's story. Then also on July 4th, there's a reply. Or maybe, actually, I think this was the initial email and then he replied too. It looks like a redacted name here. It says, something is good. You smile. Waiting for fireworks show tonight. Reading about Norman Rockwell now. I love his paintings. Aw, Jeffrey, you can't imagine how many stupid things girls do in the modeling world when looking after their bodies. I'm not surprised that they die because they go to extremes. Last week, I heard girls telling a story about a roommate who ate cotton balls to stay slim. I couldn't hold myself laughing. How stupid is that? And dangerous too. Yam, cotton balls. I still believe an alternative to be a good thing along with real medicine. Smile. And then, like we said, we got that reply from Jeffrey where he says, I hope you're having fun. 2 years ago, Ruslana, a Nissian model, died. I never noticed that word in there, and I assume it's one of Jeffrey's typos, but let's Google that real quick. What is a Nissian model? It just thinks I'm talking about Nissan. No, not Nissan, Nissian. Yeah, I think that was maybe supposed to be Russian. Then we go to July 5th, 2010. And down here, these are disclaimers. And then it's the one that we just read about eating cotton balls. And Jeffrey replies and he says, eating cotton balls is no different from eating Chinese plants. That's the point. And they replied, at least plants taste better. Wink. I'm sure the taste of ginger tea is much better than cotton ball one. Wink. And Jeffrey says, yes, but sometimes even more dangerous, especially if you believe in its powers. I don't know why he's trying so hard to get these girls to not try herbal medicine. I mean, I do agree with Jeffrey that herbal medicine can be dangerous if you're not doing proper research and not willing to supplement it with what I'm looking for, modern medicine if needed. But with this being Epstein, I'm just guessing that he probably put the girls on anxiety or antidepressants, some sort of mind or mood altering meds, and didn't like the idea of them going natural. Just my guess. And this is yet another copy of that same conversation we just read, only with an unredacted name of one of the girls. And then after that, And then we go to 2011. That was all the 2010 mentions. 2011, there are quite a few. And this is this Ramsey guy again. Let's just look him up real quick. He is a New York based musician, producer, and anthropologist, best known as the founder of the music collective Monotronic. According to Google, he acted as a scout who introduced women to Epstein in his Manhattan townhouse. He claimed he was starstruck and unaware of the extent of Epstein's actions. New email evidence indicates he was aware and catered to Epstein's sexual appetites. So this guy emails Epstein. I here are a few taken a week after her baby was born. Sending him pictures of a new model, I guess. And Epstein says, I met Katya. She said she met you and with Mark and Ruslana. Now, here is a group of emails that I missed in the 2009 part. So this is a year after Ruslana died, and Epstein and this Ramsey guy are talking about another model named Regina. And so Epstein says, is Regina's boyfriend the same as blank? Happy Thanksgiving. Svetlana is in New York. Is there anyone else she should meet? Ramsey says, Regina's boyfriend is the same as Ruslana's ex-boyfriend. The way I got to know him when MUM died, he was always around, driving to the police department and coroner's office, offering assistance in general and consoling the mother, etc. Serendipitous that you wrote me because I was just thinking about you. I wish you were in New York to make things easier. I will think and see if there's anyone should meet, but knowing your taste, I have to say off the top of my head, probably not. But at some point, I want you to meet blank. She's sort of like Marta, blank. So I know not ideal. I'll try to set something up where Svetlana can meet with Regina, but I know she will bring the boyfriend along. Epstein says she already met Regina, but was wary of the boyfriend. And someone says, no, but I will ask my Condé Nast friend. That's the producer of Vanity Fair, I believe. Jeffrey says that I can do. And someone says, Faith still push hard, uncertain outcome. And this Ramsey says, Faith is pushing for Marta? Really? Jeffrey says, definitely. Ramsey says, are you still in the city, Jeffrey? Would like for you to meet with Julia one day this week if you're around. Now, this is important because they're talking about Ruslana's ex-boyfriend still being around the models in this circle. And that's important because we'll see in another email that he has a reputation, not just a reputation for alternative medicine. Okay, still in 2011, they're talking about the girl they were having problems with, and it says, any word, do you want Vera Wang for her? Jeffrey says, yes, until Thursday night. Ramsey says, having problems with Regina, not sure what to do. Ramsey says, he's dangerous. Jeffrey says, it should be stronger. It should say something. He's telling him it should say, I regret to inform you that I choose to no longer represent you. Your behavior is not something that I am willing to tolerate and violates all our agreements. I am sorry to say it appears that you have become self-destructive. Ramsey says, I agree. Okay, we'll fix it. Should I avoid mention of Ruslana? So they're using Ruslana to these girls as like a cautionary tale to get her to do things they want. And then it gets weird in 2013. Jeffrey is replying to Ramsey saying, nice photo. Who? Ramsey says, the pic I gave you, Ruslana. And Jeffrey says, old Ruslana or a new one? Ramsey says, no Camilla. Jeffrey says, our emails just crossed. How weird. Yes, no Camilla, pain in the ass. Would ruin your chances of success quickly. So yeah, we can imagine, sadly, what they're talking about there, what he's trying to be successful with. In 2012, their emails Ramsey and says, hello, Ramsey. Hope you're well. Jeffrey is in town this week and would like to meet Irina Shank. Might you and Irina be around to be available at 5:30 tomorrow, 14th, or sometime during the day on Wednesday, the 15th? Talk with Irina and let me know what works with you. You can give me some days and times as well. If the weekend is better, that is fine also, but let's get something on the calendar. Jeffrey says, I land from the Carib at 9. Ramsey says, I'm in Thailand and she leaves town tomorrow evening, I think. I tried for tonight at 9:30 as Jeffrey originally suggested, but she's working, she thinks, until 10. So tomorrow would be better. I don't know when her flight is, so sometime in the afternoon works, let her know. Now listen to this, friends. Ramsey says, I know her through a mutual friend and most recently poached her from Maryland. Maryland is that modeling agency we were talking about. It says, don't get along with them, Regina, Ruslana, Regina, etc. We'll be moving her to another agency. I'll let her know she can come after work, but I have a feeling tomorrow afternoon will work better. So it sounds like Irina didn't get along with Ruslana and Regina. And now, from what it appears, it sounds like Irina Shayk may have been meeting up with Jeffrey Epstein. Is every model in the world someone who hung out with Epstein? Like, it seems that way. Now, 2011, we're talking about the Regina again. It's an email to Jeffrey, and it says, Regina got punched in the face by her ex. He took her phone, so I gave her mine. She will give it back tomorrow. For now, I will use this email. She had a big trouble. I left B by himself and spent almost the whole night with her and just got home. Please reply on this email. And Jeffrey says, isn't this the same boyfriend that beat up Ruslana? And whoever this is says, yes, they had a New York together at her place. Then she wanted to go out. He got crazy, punched her in front of all the friends, and he stole her phone, called me at night and was threatening me, then sending me insulting texts from her phone. Then she came to provocateur, her lips destroyed, and I told B to go home without me and stayed with her the whole night. She wasn't all right. Finally, B sent us the driver and she went home. I gave her my phone. I called her to make sure she was home safe and okay. She was going to sleep and we'll talk today when she's awake. I told her to go to the police, but the guy told everyone she was on C. So she was afraid they would do a blood test. I will talk to her seriously tonight. She is losing it. People think she is crazy. Even Artie told me, watch out. I told her she can't go with C anymore. I think it was her ex who got her into this. I had a talk with B last night. He swears the ring will be ready on Jan 5th. Waiting. Happy New Year. What a night. But I'm feeling much better, so thank you. So there's a guy that Jeffrey knows is beating up the models, but apparently nothing has been done about this guy while the girls unalign themselves, you know? Now we know that C is their email code word, I believe, for cocaine, because she said she was on C and was afraid they would do a blood test. I'm pretty sure Jeffrey supplied drugs to the girls. It was another way to keep them pulled in, you know? So we've seen a lot of, just insane manipulation and control and all this. Then we got this one in 2011 that it doesn't appear Jeffrey ever replied to. And it's really disturbing. It says, Jeffrey, is it true that the agency failed to pay Ruslana Korshnova? That she was suing because she wasn't getting paid. They were basically giving her room and board. She's on the cover of all these magazines. People think that she's making money. And she was basically just being used. And yeah, this email came in 2011, 3 years after her death. And I feel like not getting paid is another way that Jeffrey would use to control people, obviously, because everyone wants to keep their job. And if you get a job that is fun, it's glamorous, it's high paying, well, you want to keep your job. And if you're not getting paid, you're going to freak out. Anyway, I really wanted to do a video on this that was a lot more edited and polished and brought in more sources. But every time I started reading about it, I just get so upset that I end up kind of ranting instead of editing and presenting it nicely. So yeah, I'm just really curious what y'all think, friends. Do you think Jeffrey had her killed? It sounds like it to me. One reason that I say that is because this part is kind of hard to talk about. In the reports where she was found on the ground outside her apartment, and she apparently jumped 9 stories. However, the reports say she landed 8.5 meters from the building. Now, being the American that I am, I'm like, what is that in feet? So I had to Google it. And that is 27.8 feet, a long freaking way. And I've done some research, and it's upsetting research to do, but there are people who live in cities and have unfortunately seen a lot of jumpers from tall buildings. And, I've done some statistical research on this too, not just eyewitness accounts and stuff like that. Apparently, normally, when people jump like that, they land very close to the building. The normal thing is that they kind of step off or, take the leap. But most people don't have the strength, the physical leg strength to jump that far to launch yourself to where you would land away. And gravity's pulling you straight down. There's generally not wind blowing the body right next to the building as they're falling, kind of thing. So that's weird. And then another odd thing is the eyewitnesses say that her hair was chopped up, which could indicate possibly going into, an extreme mental health episode right before it, or maybe on some sort of hallucinogen. And, but someone, something, perhaps her, apparently chopped all her hair off and launched her off that building to where she landed way far away from it. 28 feet is a pretty good distance. That's my whole room here is not 28 feet wide. That's quite a ways away. So in the Wikipedia, the concierge who worked at Korshanova's building, he was a witness to the finding of her body. He says, on the next day, I realized what was wrong. It was her hair. It was much shorter than when I last saw her that night, lively and happy. It seemed like it was cut in a hurry since the ends were uneven. And the mortician who did her makeup for her funeral at the Moscow morgue says, the hair could fall out because of a strong impact, but it could not become shorter. When I was preparing the body for a funeral, I noticed the hair was in very poor condition. I even offered to find her a wig, but her relatives refused. The ends were uneven, as if someone had cut it with scissors. According to the testimony of many eyewitnesses, no strangers or suspicious people were noted the day of Korshanova's death. And like the concierge said, she was lively and happy whenever he saw her come home that night. I found a channel that has a little tribute to Ruslana. I'm going to show just a little bit of it. Hopefully they won't mind. And you can really see here why they call her the Russian Rapunzel. Very, very beautiful. I'm also just randomly loving seeing all these early 2000s fashions. Like this was my time, my heyday. I want to recreate all these outfits. Well, maybe not that one. This is a cool look. Yeah, this is Ruslana, and something about her experiences with Epstein caused her to lose her life, clearly. However it happened, and I'm curious what y'all think. We are barely dipping the surface just now into the Epstein files, learning the massive amount of tentacles that he had into every industry in the world. Reading about Ruslana just really hit my heart. The amount of women who had interactions with Epstein as adults, and then the amount of children with minors who went on to grow up and unalive themselves. The amount of people who had encounters with Epstein that led to abuse that have unalived themselves is shocking. And it just becomes more and more all the time because there are instances of unalivings by people that we didn't even know were involved with Epstein and are now starting to find out about. So I'm going to go ahead and end this here. We will have a very nice palate cleanser because this was a tough one to get through. So let's go out with looking at some cats, friends. And I do want to know, please, in the comments, what do y'all think happened to Ruslana? Do you think Epstein had her launched off that building because he hadn't been paying her, his agencies hadn't been paying her, and she was suing for the money? Let me know in the comments, friends.